We're live.
Sergeant Lugo, please start your recording.
PC started.
Cloud started. Good morning and welcome to today's remote New York City Council vote for the Committee on Civil Service and Labor. At this time, will all panelists please turn on their videos for verification purposes? And to minimize disruptions, please place all electronic devices to vibrate or silent mode. Thank you for your cooperation. Chair Miller, we are ready to begin.
Thank you, Sergeant at Arms. Good afternoon, and welcome to today's hearing on the New York City Council Committee on Civil Service and Labor. I am Councilmember Nick Miller, and I am the chair of the Council's Committee on Civil Service and Labor. Today, we'll be voting on two pieces of legislation: proposed intro 976. Proposed Reso 976A, sponsored by Councilmember Danny Drum, which would call on New York City Comptroller to instruct the pension fund of public employees in New York City to divest from any companies involved in the production and maintenance of nuclear weapons, reaffirming New York City as a nuclear weapon-free zone, and joining the ICANN cities appeal, calling on the United States to support and join the treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons. The committee would also be voting on Intro 2454, of which I am the sponsor. This bill would amend New York City's collective bargaining law to allow non-union members to proceed through the grievance and arbitration process without union representation, so long as the non-union member assumes the cost. This bill would account for the U.S. Supreme Court's decision, Janus versus AFSCME, which they declared that unions could no longer collect mandatory fair share fees to cover the cost of collective bargaining. In the aftermath of the court's decision, union leaders feared that more public workers would withdraw from the unions, magnifying the free rider effect, where employees can reap the benefits of union bargaining without supporting the union financially. The aim of Intro 2454 is to help ameliorate the free rider effect by removing specific costs associated with services and benefits to public sector unions and what they are required to provide to non-union members. This will reduce unions' obligation and financial strains and ultimately preserving the viability of the valuable public sector unions. I'd like to thank the unions and officials for their advocacies in this matter who brought this to our attention, and certainly my staff for helping out here as well. At the time, I'd like to also thank Councilmember Drum for his thoughtful legislation. It's been a long time getting this over the finish line, and I know he is very excited about this today. And so, as we move forward, I know there are other committees that are waiting to cast vote this afternoon. We've been joined by Council members Lewis, Adams, Drum, Denowitz, and Ulrich, and myself. And with that, Billy, could we have a roll call on the vote?
I believe Councilmember Drum wanted to make a comment.
I am so sorry. Yes, I am so sorry, Councilmember Drum. Please, I know you have something to say about this piece of legislation that you have waited so long to see come to fruition.
Thank you very much, Chair Miller. Today, I hope this committee will take a resounding step toward a nuclear weapons-free world and vote for Resolution 976A. Earlier this year, New York City formally announced the divestment of several of its pension funds from fossil fuels. While this is a great development, it is sad that the city neglected the biggest environmental and existential threat of all, nuclear weapons. With today's vote, the council is challenging the city to do the right thing and stop funding directly and indirectly the production of nuclear arms. We are New York City, and we should be leading the growing coalition of municipalities, domestically and internationally, who recognize the absurdity of investing in our own destruction. As we speak, representatives of the Catholic Church are preparing to present to the Vatican the formal case of Dorothy Day for sainthood. Day was and continues to be an inspiration for all peace-loving people and is especially noteworthy for her dedication to a world without nuclear weapons. Her granddaughter, Martha Hennessy, reminded us of this when she testified at the committee hearing last year. Earlier this year, Mayor de Blasio officially christened one of the Staten Island ferries in Day's honor. An even better way to honor Day and her Catholic worker colleagues is to have New York City take all possible action to frustrate the production and use of nuclear arms. I would be remiss if I did not recognize the living saints and peacemakers amongst us, namely the incredibly tenacious activists who moved this idea from inception to fruition. Kathleen Sullivan, Matthew Bolton, Seth Sheldon, Robert Kroonquist, and all of the individuals who supported this effort. It is not hard to see why the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons won the 2017 Nobel Peace Prize. I especially want to recognize my good friend, human rights activist Brendan Fay, who first discussed with me ideas about how our city could support nuclear divestment. I also want to acknowledge Chair Miller and the council staff who worked on this. Natalie Omari, Elizabeth Arts, Bianca Vitale, Zay Emanuel, Hailu, and Smita Deshmukh. Finally, I want to express my appreciation to my colleague and now Controller-elect Brad Lander for indicating his willingness to work with the experts and advocates on moving forward on divestment. Thank you very much, Chair Miller.
Thank you so much, Chair Drum. Thank you, Councilmember Drum, for that statement. Thank you for your leadership. And I am a proud co-sponsor of Reso 976 as well. I actually ran into Brendan on the street and a couple of weeks ago and reminded me that this was important, and we talked about getting this across the finish line. So your advocates are out there. With that, Billy, we'll take a roll call.
Absolutely. Thank you. William Martin, Committee Clerk, roll call vote, Committee on Civil Service and Labor, Introduction 2454, Resolution 976A. Item Chair Miller.
I vote aye on all.
Thank you. Rosenthal.
I vote aye on all. Thank you.
Thank you. Adams.
I vote aye.
Thank you. Moya.
I vote aye.
Thank you. Lewis.
I vote aye.
Thank you. Dinowitz.
I vote aye.
Thank you. Ulrich.
I vote aye.
Thank you. By a vote of 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and no abstentions, both items have been adopted by the committee. Mr. Chair, that is a full committee. You can close at your convenience.
Thank you so much, William. I want to thank everyone. We have been joined by Councilmember Moya as well. I neglected to mention his name. I want to thank everyone for taking the time and look forward certainly for this to pass the full body. With that, this hearing is adjourned.